Hello, hello. Good evening. My name is Heike Dempster. I'm the Director of Engagement and Outreach at YoungArts. My pronouns are she, her. The YoungArts campus is situated on the traditional homeland of Native nations, including the Tequesta, the Calusa, the Taino, and today the Miccosukee and the Seminole. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and future, and recognize their continued existence and contributions to our community. So thank you all for joining us. This is an info session dedicated to the film discipline at YoungArts. YoungArts identifies exceptional young artists, amplifies their potential, and invests in their lifelong creative freedom. And the journey with YoungArts really begins with the competition. And we want to encourage all the artists aged 15 to 18 or grades 10 to 12 to apply. A few housekeeping notes quickly. We are recording this session this evening for anyone who couldn't join. So if you want to protect your privacy, you can change your name to first name only if you'd like. You can ask questions at any time using either the chat or also raising your hand, and we will be monitoring the chat, and we will also be sharing additional resources, so keep an eye on that. And now it is my pleasure to welcome our speakers. We have Nidra Ward, Associate Director of Winner Programs at YoungArts. We have YoungArts Film Selection Panelist Kimberley Browning, and 2020 and 2021 YoungArts winner in film Mariah Barrera. Kimberley Browning, let me introduce everybody quickly. She's a filmmaker and film festival professional based in Los Angeles. Originally from the Washington, D.C. area, Browning studied music performance and film at the USC and then began her career working in production at Disney's Touchstone Television. Her film credits include Archie's Final Project, which premiered at the Berlin Film Festival, Uprooted: The Journey of Jazz Dance, which premiered on HBO Max in 2022, and the feature documentary Acting Like Nothing Is Wrong. Additional credits include All Hallows Eve 2, Certified, Room 19 and Earbuds, a podcasting documentary. Episodic credits include programming for HBO, A&E Network, CBS, NBC, ABC Signature, Rolling Stone, and more. Browning is the head of programming at Catalyst Content Festival and an associate film programmer for Tribeca Film Festival. She's the founder and festival director of Hollywood Short Film Festival, launched in 1998 as well. She served as the executive producer for HBO Access Directors Fellowship and is now the program's advisor at Tribeca's AT&T Untold Stories feature film grant program. That's just a few of the credits. Mariah Barrera is a Mexican-American filmmaker and writer born and raised in Michigan. She's based part-time in New York City as a student at Columbia University. Her films have been shown at festivals such as DOC NYC and Urban World and highlighted by Now This, Stylecaster, The Washington Post, and Adobe. She has also earned recognition at YoungArts, of course, Me Too Walmart Film Mentee and Made in Her Image Panavision Mentee, and the Hispanic Heritage Foundation awardee as well. Her films aim to contextualize themes of social justice and equity, drawing from her family's experiences in the urban Midwest. Using the stories, she's passionate about bridging the gap between narrative and documentary through the use of poetry. Currently, she is exhibiting her film Still Here, which follows three brothers whose coming of age was stained by violence, poverty, and prison. She's also working on her second documentary as a Still Rise Films Fellow. So thank you, and I pass it off to Kimberley.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited that you're here. We're excited to tell you about YoungArts and all the things that we do to help artists pursue their dreams of having a career in the arts. We are going to answer some questions. We're going to provide you information about this year's 2024 competition and your film application. We're going to give you all the key information about how to best put together the best application possible and all the resources that we have available to you to be able to put forth your best work. So YoungArts, again, as Heike said, is an organization that supports artists across 10 disciplines from all stages of development. So from that moment, it hit you in the head that you have a story to tell and that film is the way you want to tell it. We are the program for you to apply to. So later, Nidra is going to join us and tell about the specifics of how to apply, but I'm going to jump into what we're looking for and what kind of films we want to see and how to put your best foot forward when you are sharing your work with us. So first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're looking for from our film artists. When you put your application in, you have 10 minutes to tell us your story. Now that can be one film that's 10 minutes long, or it can be a total of 2 films that add up to 10 minutes. We are not going to watch anything more than 10 minutes. So if you submit an 8-minute film and a 10-minute film, we're going to watch the first film for 8 minutes and we'll watch 2 minutes of the second one. So be very thoughtful in what it is you want to show us, and you want us to know about you as a storyteller and as a visual artist so that we can best score your application. In terms of what we're looking for originality. I don't think we're looking for a perfectly crafted narrative. We want to hear what you have to say, and we want to see a moment of originality in how you're telling us that love story, or how you're telling us that sci-fi thriller. We love a horror film. We love experimental. So no matter what discipline you're exploring in your storytelling, no matter what technique you're using to explore your film noir storytelling or your 3-camera comedy, I don't care if you shot it on your Arri that you were able to borrow from your dad because he works in the business, or you shot it on your iPhone. We know you all have exquisite stories to tell, but we want to see how you tell it uniquely from anybody else. And that's what stands out the most, that we want to encourage everybody to really be able to present something that personally connects to you, and that we can hear you and your voice and where you come from in it. That was what gets us really excited. I am the chair of the panel, and there's 2 other filmmakers that work with me on that panel. And through our evaluation process, your film is going to be seen by many people that work in all aspects of the industry. And then ultimately, Rick and Hollis Meminger and Rick Delgado, who are both amazing filmmakers and top-notch cinematographers. And Rick also works as an editor and in post. And so we have a lot of different experiences that we bring to the table and how we are looking at your work. In terms of genre, again, I want to be really clear. I want to see everything. Do not be afraid of a comedy. We take comedies very seriously in these times and everything we've been through collectively. We want to see a unique vision that also can find a sense of humor. Your film doesn't have to be a drama for it to be taken very seriously and evaluated for its technique, for its storytelling, for its original dialogue. I don't want to be able to predict what everybody's about to say. Find a moment where you can surprise us and show us characters that are making choices informed by different walks of life or different experiences. We are excited to see your potential in your work. And we want to see the kind of stories that keep you up at night and make you want to stand on the corner and yell and scream out loud. And I love a body count. I like a movie with some blood in it. I'm not going to lie. So we really want to encourage you, no matter what kind of films that you're making, and no matter where you are in the country, and no matter what your resources are, we want to see your work and we want you to apply. We want to encourage you to go to the YoungArts website. Also, we have a great YouTube page that shares a lot of the artists from the many, many years that YoungArts has been happening. And you can see all of the amazing talent in every discipline. And if you email us, you want to see some of the films that have played in the past, we can show you some of those things as well. And we want to make sure that you take these resources and see the stories of people that have come before you as encouragement and not, oh, my work's not good enough. I don't want you guys making that decision for us, because we want to encourage you no matter where you are And there's all kind of different resources for no matter where you are in your filmmaking journey. So we want to make sure that you don't talk yourself out of taking an opportunity that's being afforded to you. We want to make sure that you are the original creator of this work. So if it's work that you're doing in the classroom, it's really important that you are the original director for this piece. And as Nidra explains to you more of how the application works, you want to make sure that there's one director and one team. You can't have 3 or 4 people submitting the same work for a young arts competition, and we'll get into that originally. So if you have something that was made by a group, you might want to consider something that you had the leadership on and that you created your script. So I want to talk just a little bit more about techniques and the kind of formulations that you're making and the kind of storytelling. So if it's something that's non-dialogue, if it's something that's very creative visually, if it's something that has amazing art department, if you are a painter or an artist, we absolutely value and will score accordingly to things that have not just great actor performances, but we also are really experienced in being able to identify people who have a lot of strengths in writing, in dialogue, art department, cinematography. If you also shot your piece, we want to see that. We want to see what kind of visual language and innovation you bring to how you're putting your characters onto their journey. Okay, so I'm gonna also just go over it again. 10 minutes. It can be one film or a combination of 2. Make sure and put your strongest work first. We're gonna watch that in order. Again, all genres. And I want to just share to believe in yourself and believe in your work and let us see what you are working on. Because we take work from 10th through 12th grade and 15 to 18, that means if you are, your film can absolutely be shorter. It doesn't have to be a total, you have up to 10 minutes. I'm answering something I'm seeing in the chat. So to be clear, it can total up to 10 minutes. But because we are really excited about getting to know you, some of you are going to just be discovering young arts and you are already 18 or a senior, send your work in. For those of you who are younger and for those people you know in your school, in your neighborhoods, go to your churches, in your sports teams that are also exploring cinema and filmmaking and video and animation. If you're 15 or 16, you can continue to submit at the different levels of winners that we have at Young Arts. And so many times we will see a filmmaker's work year after year, which we get really excited because we get to track your growth and we remember people from year to year. And so Mariah is one of those people, and I'm going to turn this over to her in a minute. But does anybody have any questions for creatively anything about what you want to submit and what you want to create to be able to submit?
And feel free to drop it in the chat or raise your hand. Either works.
So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Mariah, and she's going to talk about some of her journey, and then I can grab some questions after that. And Mariah can and I can answer questions together.
Okay, yeah, we just got a few of them.
Okay.
Okay. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Mariah Barrera. I am a filmmaker, and I'm also a student at Columbia University. And I was a Young Arts winner in film in both 2020 and 2021. So the way I heard about Young Arts, I didn't go to a high school where I was taking filmmaking classes or had a very large, robust art department. So I knew very early on that if I kind of when I discovered my passion for filmmaking, if I wanted to cultivate that, I had to search everywhere for these types of opportunities, competitions, whatever it may be. So I did a Google search, and that's how I actually found Young Arts, and I was immediately drawn to it. It seemed very accessible, and I remember being blown away by the alumni and how many people I knew participated in Young Arts when they were younger. And so I absolutely wanted to submit. So my journey was kind of like, as Kimberly mentioned, was going at it year after year. The very first year that I submitted it, I didn't get in, I didn't win anything. The second year that I submitted, I was selected as a Young Arts winner. And then the very last, most recent year, which was 2021, I was selected as a Young Arts winner with distinction, which means I was invited to Young Arts Week. And it wasn't necessarily in Miami because that was the pandemic year, but I was able to participate in that week virtually. And so that's kind of how the trajectory of my journey went. It was really just staying committed to it year after year. And also, as she mentioned on the judges' end, that they're able to track your development, I was also able to track my own development and see how the types of stories I wanted to tell and what I was creating was changing year after year. And that was super motivating for me to continue each year being like, you know what, my voice has changed, so I want to show them that that has changed. Yeah, so that's kind of how I heard about Young Arts and what that process was like for me initially. And so I guess like when it comes to the time that I applied, beforehand, as I mentioned, I wasn't really taking like traditional film classes, or like in a high school, I didn't go to an arts high school. But I was working with a local organization that aimed to cultivate storytelling skills in inner city youth, and they were teaching us how to make movies with our iPhones and with iMovie. And so that's really where my basis for filmmaking came. By the time I started entering Young Arts, pretty much my experience was making films on my phone and also working on some community projects. So that's kind of where I was at. And so I think it's important, no matter where you are, what those resources look like for you. Like Kimberly said, that you don't talk yourself out of applying, because I think there were times that I kind of felt like, looking at the winners each year and the types of schools they came from, I was kind of like, well, do I have the experience? Do I have the expertise to enter? But I realized that some of those things that I was looking at as, maybe why I'm unqualified ended up being my strengths as I was applying year after year. So that's kind of where I was at around the time that I applied. And as an artist, I knew that I really liked using my own personal stories, that I had a lot of life experiences that I feel like weren't necessarily represented in a lot of films that I watched. So it was like, that's where my inspiration came from. I think at that point, it was like, I just want to make films about all these different things that I've experienced in my life. And that's kind of who I was at the time that I was applying to Young Arts, and what that was like through those years. When it came to selecting pieces for my application, I guess I'll speak more so on 2021, which is the year that I was selected to participate in Young Arts Week. That was the year coming off of summer of 2020, and there were a lot of conversations that were happening about a lot of inequities and injustice that was going on for a long time, that a lot of these conversations were being brought to the forefront. And, that's where my personal connection came. I realized that, topics around incarceration and the criminal justice system didn't feel like they were humanizing, and that, the stories were emphasis on people's real experience. And I knew my family experienced that. So that's kind of where my motivation came from for the film that I was going to submit. I knew I wanted to submit to Young Arts. It was my last year. And when I started thinking about the type of film I wanted to tell, that is the story that felt most pressing and most urgent. And I think being able to identify what really, it's going to be a long process, and I knew it was going to be difficult, for me to get this film made by the deadline. So I really had to think to myself, what is something that I am so passionate about, and that it will get me to the finish line, that my motivation will get me to the finish line. And so for me, it was a matter of identifying like which film really like sets my heart on fire. Which one is it like, I have to make this film, whether it's for Young Arts or not, I have to make it. That's kind of what I used in my head to figure out what type of film I wanted to make, and how to really figure that piece out. Was really just, what do I feel like I really need to tell, and what is something I feel like I have a strong perspective and point of view. So when you're thinking about your own ideas, if you have multiple films that you're choosing between, or just ideas that you're still working between, I think the biggest thing is to think about, what is a story that you have such a strong point of view on, that you have to tell it, or you have to choose this one. This feels most representative of who I am and what I want to say. So having just, I think above all, just a strong conviction, whatever story you feel like, what, even if it seems like I should submit this one because this is what I think they'd like, but this is the one I really want, always go for the one that you really want. I think what I noticed throughout my years of submitting is the first few years, I was really focused on what type of story do they want. I was really focused on like, I think they'll like this, so let me give them this. But I realized the last year it kind of got to the point where it wasn't, this is what I think they're gonna like. It was like, this is what I feel most strongly about. And I think that that really shows when they know that this is what you truly cared about, not just what you think that they want, if that makes sense. Um, yeah, so that was kind of how I went about selecting my piece for my application. And in terms of like some tips to help you all as you're starting to work through that application process, for me, I think really giving yourself enough time to think through ideas. I think there can sometimes be pressure if you're creating something new for Young Arts that I have to immediately get into production, I have to immediately start shooting because of the urgency of it. But I think really giving yourself some time to really sit with your ideas, think through them, and allow things to come to you when you have that time is a really good way to start your process. And I think for me in total, it took me all in all, if I have to add up the days that I spent on it, it took me about 3 weeks to really piece everything together. And then it took a few more weeks before that to think through things. But whatever timeline you're working with, don't let the timeline stop you. If you make a goal to yourself that you want to get it in by the date, then absolutely work up until that date. I know a lot of people work on, planning things in advance, but for me, I'm personally, I have to get that push of pressure and time. So absolutely work up until the deadline. You have the deadline for a reason. So that's something I'd really just take advantage of the time that you have. And in terms of reviewing your film and getting feedback from people, I know not everyone has an educator who's kind of reminding them of the deadlines and kind of giving you that built-in feedback. And so for me, I didn't really find my feedback for my film in an educator, but I found it in people I trust, whether that's you trust them with the story that you're telling or you trust in their abilities. So for me, that was my family. I was making a personal film and I really trusted in their ability to kind of understand and see the story that I was trying to tell and giving me input, but also them knowing me as a human and as a filmmaker. I felt like I could really trust their feedback. For you, that may be a friend. For you, that might be a past Young Arts winner. I had someone last year reach out to me who was thinking of applying and had me watch a sample of their film. And that's also a great resource that you can always take advantage of. So, even if you don't find that necessarily in an educator, which some of you may, really think about who you can trust. And absolutely, those are the types of people that I think you can kind of get feedback for your film before you submit it. I think the last tip that I'll say in terms of application, something that really helped me, each year before I applied, I made a point to write down, like, why am I telling this story or what am I making this film for? And when I first, would start writing my answer, it'd be, well, I want to make a film for Young Arts. Why? Well, I want to make a film for Young Arts because I want to win Young Arts. Why? Because I want access to these opportunities. But then I started getting more and more deep of like, okay, well, why this specific story? And I noticed that, each year I did that, I would finally get to like, why do I want to tell this specific story? Why am I telling this personal story about incarceration? Oh, well, because it means a lot to me and I don't see it adequately represented and I want to humanize my dad and my uncles. And what I realized is, throughout the process when making the film got hard or I felt discouraged, I always had that original piece of paper that said, why am I doing this? And that really motivated me to get to the finish line. And so whether you hang it up in your room, hang it up, wherever you're working, wherever you're editing your desktop, put it near there, put it like on your computer. That's something that I did every year. And truly when I felt unmotivated or like, I don't know if this film is good enough. I don't know if this is my time. I don't know if I should be submitting. I always brought myself back to like, okay, before you even started this process, what was the thing that you said you wanted to accomplish? Why did you want to tell this? And I think figuring that out for yourself will absolutely provide some of that intrinsic motivation to get it done and to feel confident and proud of whatever it is that you create. So that's in terms of application. And so now I'm going to be getting into Young Arts Week. So Young Arts Week is something I got to participate in the very last time as I was a winner with distinction. And my experience was a bit different because I did it during the pandemic. So it was a Zoom call, but it was still, nonetheless, it was such a fruitful experience. I think there's a few different ways I can explain Young Arts Week. But the biggest thing is that it is a very well-rounded experience. There's different like pockets of it that really shape the week for what it is. The first thing is really making connections with other young artists across the country. I think for me, especially coming from a place where I didn't have that arts community like built in, being able to finally have that at Young Arts Week was just such a new but such an incredible experience to know that there were other people, other young people who were very passionate about film, who were making amazing things. And I found a lot of inspiration and a lot of fun just being in community with other young artists from such different backgrounds, such different schools, such different life experiences than I had. And so that was a very fruitful experience. And there also were opportunities for me to meet winners from other disciplines, people I still keep up with even on just social media to this day, who won in different disciplines, but we all kind of have this united sense of we were Young Arts winners that really just gives you a network that I can't even begin to explain how amazing it is to have people not just in film, but also young people in every other discipline. You never know how you're going to meet them, collaborate with them in the future. Another part of Young Arts Week is the master classes. And this is something that was so special to me because, again, the way I described it during Young Arts Week is it felt like the veil was being pulled back over an industry that, in a career path that I wanted to go down. I was able to sit in on sessions with professional directors and cinematographers who were walking us through their life journey, their tips. That was very amazing to, see people actually living out this path that I felt like I was just in the beginning of, and really provided a lot of motivation. We also had some more practical skill-oriented workshops where we were given like bare bones of a script, and we kind of had to fill things in and then present it and have like a table read with professional actors who were able to read through the script that we just wrote, or getting a lesson on different cinematography lighting techniques that we could do with things we buy from Home Depot. So there was the inspiration, but then there were also these practical skills that I was going to be able to apply once I left Young Arts Week. I was going to be able to use these on my next projects and later down in my career. So that was also super helpful. And the last thing was the professional development and the personal development part of it. There was a lot I learned about myself aside from just being an artist during Young Arts Week. I really learned what makes me me and why is my voice important. There is a standout activity that we did during Young Arts Week that I always think back on. In the film cohort, we did an activity where we made like a circle with 3 life-defining events that are like just these, if we had to sum up our life to 3 life-defining points, this is what it would be, including when we decided or when we discovered that we wanted to be a filmmaker, that we had a passion for filmmaking. And we were able to share that with the other panelists and the finalists. And not only did that make me feel like I knew the others and that they knew me in a deeper sense, but it also made me think about like who I am, why am I telling these stories, and like what are the most important moments that are going to guide me as I go down this career path. And so I think like for me that those moments like that were where we weren't recognized as just as young artists, but as young people who are learning about themselves, and being able to walk away with all those specific skill sets and all those realizations during Young Arts Week absolutely not only did it strengthen my desire to go down filmmaking as a career path, but it also just cemented this community of young arts that I still see the fruits of today. Everything that I learned during Young Arts Week has manifested in some way over these last few years, whether it be the connections I made, the skills that I learned and being able to apply them to a future project, or just the things I learned about myself and the values that I want to keep close to me as I keep pursuing this path. And also having the panelists there like Kimberley, they were our guiding anchors throughout the week, and through every activity, through every panel, they were able to offer us their amazing resources and who they are and the things that they've learned in their journey, and giving us feedback on, just being in the beginning of our careers, how can we navigate these different things as we move forward. So even the panelists were able to be an amazing and a great resource in a relationship that I've been able to build over the last few years. And so Young Arts Week is just an unparalleled experience, whether you're someone coming in with a lot of experience or someone like me who's kind of just learning what this could look like. It provides things that you can't really measure because I'm seeing the fruits of it year after year, what just one week was able to lead to in my personal and professional journey. So yeah, that was my Young Arts experience. And so I think it would be really helpful for you guys to get a sense of where I was at and what is the actual film that landed me a Young Arts winner with distinction title in 2021. So I'm going to be playing about like 3 minutes of my 4-minute film. It's called My Brother's Keeper. Yeah, so I'm going to screen share that now.
Hey, Mariah, why don't you play the whole thing?
Okay. Oh yeah, I am going to be playing the whole thing. Okay. Sorry.
And then after this, we'll go and answer your questions.
Okay. There we go. Just give me a thumbs up, someone, if you can hear it when it starts playing.
I was outside for 2 to 3 hours that evening, head spinning, anxiously waiting for my older brother to get home from that after school program. I mean, he was late before, but this time was different. I was worried. Thoughts were racing through my head of what could have happened to him. I waited and waited until finally I saw him coming down the street. That was the first time I learned how it felt to be concerned over the absence of one of my brothers. Over the next couple decades of our lives, I would experience this feeling again and again. See, as we got older, those feelings would return as I waited for him and my youngest brother to come home from prison sentences. Being the only one of 3 out in the free world, I realized early on that I am my brother's keeper. The last time all 3 of us had been out in the free world together was when we were children, during our childhood. Even then, we were children wishing to be men. I sometimes think about my little brother Mike stealing money from my mom's purse. I think about how we split it up evenly between the 3 of us. But after my mom found out of fear, Mike flushed his portion down the toilet. And my older brother spent the rest of the day figuring out how to get Mike's cup back so that we could return it. That one moment was a premonition for a lot of what would happen in our adult lives. We were each other's keepers. 20 years later, there was only one moment where we were all together again before someone else was taken away. It's easy for some to say due to crime, due to time, but hard for them to recognize that we were our own version of American troops. Except our country was our family, a stained lineage that we were convinced at a young age that we had to fend for. I don't blame them for getting caught up in the war. The same war that took my 4 uncles before they reached the age of 40. 1 on my mom's side, 3 on my dad's. In many ways, we were predisposed for this kind of life. We were our uncle's keepers before we were even born. You see, the ugly truth is that incarceration steals, kills, and destroys. Steals boys before they have the chance to become men. Kills futures before they can even take flight. Destroys families like it almost did to mine. See, incarceration taught me to fear the world. Incarceration tried to teach me that the remedy for trauma is more trauma. Incarceration tells us they deserve it. Incarceration is the same system that takes my brothers away and looks me in the face and threatens to take me too. Truth is, I shouldn't have to take an eloquently written prose for the lives of brothers like mine to be humanized. For you to reconcile your American dream with my American reality. Am I my country's keeper?
Hello, this is a prepaid collect call from...
But it's back to reality, awaiting that day when me and my brothers will reunite for good. One family, under God, indivisible. And you know the rest. Sometimes I feel like I'm that kid on the curb waiting to see my brother come around that corner. Face illuminated by the street light, and all worry in my body ceases. My youngest brother still has some time left, but he'll be home soon. Until then, I am my brother's keeper, and always will be.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that movie, Mariah. I remember the first day I saw it, and it always encourages me about truth in storytelling. And one of my favorite things when we were discovering and learning more about you is when we found out that you cast your uncle's sons as them in your film. And that meant so much to us in terms of being creative and using your resources and the things that young art really cherishes, and also the way that you crafted the structure of your film so you didn't have to rely on them being able to act. You were able to put forth your emotion and your narrative in a relatable way for audiences, no matter where they come from in any walk of life. We felt was very effective as well. So what does it feel like to you now that you're off to film school and you're a couple of years away? What's your perspective when you watch the film again and sharing it with the new generation of young arts people?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Kimberly. As you mentioned, and something I really wanted to point out, and I guess I kind of forgot to touch on with the tips for your application is really, your resources are going to become your strengths. And I think for me, I had to make do with what I had and what I had available for me and available to me. And I think that that informed my story a lot. When I couldn't do something one way, I had to brainstorm how to do it another way. And that ended up being the strong stylistic choices, I think, that were able to make my submission unique and were able to be my strengths, honestly. So, always look at it as, the things that you feel like you lack in are, those can be the things that give you individuality and give you a very unique perspective and point of view within your film. So being years out from this film, it always makes me very emotional when I watch this because I remember the feeling of creating it and, how I think compared to anything I've ever made in the past, this is something I felt the most proud of. And even to this day, that sense of pride still lingers. And, I also look back at it as this was absolutely a seed that was planted for a much bigger purpose. Just to share some of like the life that your film can have outside of your Young Arts submission. I think for me, having this film be selected for Young Arts and participating in Young Arts Week really gave me a lot of validation to take this film even further. So that included submitting it to other film festivals. And I think one of the biggest things to come out of this is that I was able to take this film and use it as a work sample. That year, actually later on that year in May, I applied for a fellowship / grant for this organization called Still I Rise Films. And I was able to submit this and pitch I made this 4-minute micro short. I want to make it into still a short film, but a bit of a longer one that's like 16 minutes. And so I was able to pitch that and use this as a work sample and receive $5,000 as funding to make this into an even longer film. And over the last 2 years, my process has been making that longer film called Still Here that includes both of my uncle's perspectives as they now are not incarcerated anymore. And I've also been able to take that to film festivals. And even just a few weeks ago, I was in New York playing the film at a documentary shorts showcase at a documentary cinema in New York City. So even though I created the first portion of this film as My Brother's Keeper years ago, it's still been having life. And absolutely that is because of the motivation I received from Young Arts to take this film further, take the story further. So yeah, I think it's just been amazing. Every time I watch this, I see it as just one seed planted that absolutely blossomed into something bigger. I heard a lot during Young Arts Week, this idea that opportunities when you're in the filmmaking industry, opportunities lead to other opportunities. And I didn't really understand that until I submitted to Young Arts and I realized, the opportunity and the push to make this film led to this opportunity. And truly, it's just been amazing. And I'm just so thankful to be here and be able to share this film and everything else with you all. And just thank you, Kimberly, for everything about Young Arts.
You're welcome. So I'm going to thank you so much, Mariah. That was just so beautifully put. And I hope it's inspiring all of you out there and connecting the dots of your own pathway to Young Arts. And that there's no barrier to entry here. And we're here to make sure to give you the information, the knowledge, and the resources that you can overcome whatever obstacles in your way to be able to the work that you've been doing in the past, evaluating it to see if it's what you submit. Are you going to try to knock out something from now and then? And let's talk about structurally what that could be. So that somebody like Mariah structured something that was in the wheelhouse of something she could do in 3 weeks. And so that was part of the success that she had, was crafting something that was fenced in a way that was specific and succinct and successful because she did not try to tell the 16-minute project. And that worked really well for her avenue to success. There are a couple of really quick questions that have come in that I want to touch on. And for those of you who joined us midway, We are going to recap when Nidra joins us some of the basics and the fundamentals and answer your submission questions. But artistically, I saw some really great questions I wanted to address. Yes, again, your submission can be up to 10 minutes. It can be up to 2 films. We will only watch up to 10 minutes. So you could have a piece that's 4 minutes and that's all you submit. We love that. If you have 2 pieces, you want us to see a little bit of both. Just think about, if you're thinking about doing that, giving us at least 1 piece that we can see your beginning, middle, and end and how you land the plane. We do like to see, we'd rather see the complete film of your strongest work and a little bit of a second one. And they absolutely can be completely different genres, topics, disciplines, formats. We love documentaries, as you can see. I think I saw that question in there. Animated films are judged on the exact same basis. Many of us have a lot of experience. I am a member of the AMPAS, which is the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts and Sciences. I am in the animation and short film branch. I'm a voting member for the Oscars for live action shorts, animated features, and animated shorts. And I'm also a voting member on the Student Academy Awards, which we just started, but finished voting on Friday. Whatever discipline you're using to tell your story, we want to see it. And we have a lot of experience. I worked in animation at Disney. I worked at Titmouse. I worked on Metalocalypse. I have extensive animation experience. And we have, for the experimental people out there, no dialogue. We love that. I think it's a really great way. If you can tell your story with no dialogue, that is a source of power that's very valued among experienced filmmakers. So that would serve you well to express yourself that way. I think another great question that one of the experimental filmmakers asked, we absolutely love experimental film and do not write to the test, as Mariah mentioned. Tell your story your way and trust that we have experts on our screening team. We have experts that are non-narrative, avant-garde, and experimental filmmakers, and they are very skilled in their own discipline and their own work, and will recognize what you're trying to say. So don't try to build in a false narrative to make sure it's comprehensible. Trust yourself to tell the film that you want to say it, and then and trust us to be able to evaluate it in that space. Ray Myers, I'm not sure I understand your question, so if you could restate it, or if you want to turn your camera on and tell it, we want to make sure we're answering it, but I'm not understanding how you are expressing your question here. Patricia, we love music videos. Many of us started our careers in music videos, and Hollis still knocks them out. He's one of the best cinematographers in the country. And Rick as well does a lot of commercials and lifestyle and branded content and really beautiful pieces, and loves music videos. No, Marcos, your crew can be over 18, just you have to be 16, 17, or 18. Nidra, that's correct, right?
It's 15 to 18 or in grades 10 through 12. So the crew does not need to have any age restrictions. It's just the person submitting the film that they are creating.
Right. Someone else talked about, and listen, filmmaking is a team sport, and we do it, especially for those of you who are in school, are taking arts and video programs at school. Many things are group. For Young Arts, you need to be the sole director of your film. You can have a co-writer, but you need to be the director. We are not able to consider films that are directed or co-directed by multiple creatives. That's beyond the scope of what we can do. So make sure that you are submitting work that is yours, and that you singularly were the vision and expressed what was on the script, and that you created this script. You absolutely can submit to different disciplines, and Nidra is going to speak to that. Although many of you do a lot of different things, and some of you are great screenwriters and want to submit something to the writers program. We have that happen all the time, and I'll let Nidra speak to that. Charisse, Nidra will explain to you the process, but we have a very equitable process. And when you submit is going to be, if you submit early and you submit and the day before the deadline, it's going to be evaluated all exactly the same. And Marcos, I hope that you can see with Mariah's work, we love strong themes. We want it to be authentic storytelling. Just think about as you're evaluating the pieces that you want to show us, I want to go back to originality. The really amazing thing about being a teenager and growing up wherever you grew up is we have a lot of common experiences. And especially in storytelling, many of our themes and tropes can be similar. So we want to make sure that you're finding something in your work, because a lot of our collective work is about COVID. It's about mental health. It's about personal care. It's about spiritual growth. It's about our own personal stories. And so we love powerful stories, and we want it all. We want your truth. We want your truth however you express it. Just be cautious that you are creating something that has some sort of component that's uniquely yours, and not something that we see every day. So if you have pieces that you feel is a little bit more original, we would default to want to see that, as opposed to if you did something for class that was practicing film noir technique. I love film noir as well, but I prefer to see it if it serves the narrative, as opposed to something that feels like your classwork project practicing that technique. And so I hope that helps give you a little bit of a tip as you're thinking about what you're looking to submit. And Nidra, I'll let you speak to this as well. Charisse, particularly, we want finished films, mostly for the fact that when you are submitting, many people are going to be submitting finished work. If you are a work in progress, make sure that your sound has a good sound pass, that your dialogue is mixed, and make sure that if you have stuff in VFX that didn't quite get finished, or if you have a sci-fi piece or a genre piece and there's a monster and you didn't finish that sound mix, that's part of the narrative element of your film that we need to be able to evaluate your film in competition with those who have had pieces that are more finished. So just keep that into your consideration if this is the piece that you want to submit this year. Music does not have to be your own. We have some flexibility. One of the things, because you are using a lot of elements that cannot be cleared, is when you go visit, say, the website or the Young Arts page, you will notice that the films are screened as part of the participation at Young Arts Week for those who are invited, for those with distinction. But we are the discipline. We are not, we don't send your films out on the YouTube page, because a lot of people use the music that inspired them at the time that's not clearable. So we do protect your process a little bit and have other ways that we utilize to let people share in your work and your links in a way that's protected but not publicly available, so you won't have to worry about any of that. And we've never had a problem being able to screen whatever for the people who come and participate in Young Arts Week. Mariah, are there questions for Mariah and Nidra? I'm not sure I'm seeing all of these.
The next one in how you are going is an essay required for the submission as well.
Mm-hmm.
So no, there's not an essay required for the submission. It is simply films, film or films.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, about that copyright, don't use a famous song, because at the end of the day, it takes away from your film anyway. If you've written your film and it only works because there's a Rolling Stone song in it, nobody's going to get to see it because you can't put it anywhere. So we absolutely will probably evaluate that in the score of those who found one of the free clearable songs. There's so many open source. The artist Beck has a really killer website that has open source music as well. As long as you don't make any money on your short film, he has free beats and atmospheric music that you can use, and a couple of things that are more narratively structured as well. There's so much free music and really amazing kids that you go to school with and stuff you can find on the internet that do your film a favor and find loops or clearable music. It really benefits you in the long run.
Yeah. So the next question is, how recent does the work need to be?
Nidra, I think you have, I don't know what we like the last year and a half, 2 years. I think with COVID, a lot of you had more time to work on stuff. And so if it's been a couple years and you haven't submitted it before to Young Arts, you want to take a pass on it, punch it up. Absolutely, that's eligible. We'd love to see it.
So I think this is a further clarification. So you cannot submit work you have edited or been director of photography.
Correct. You have to be the director. That
Okay,
is
I know
correct.
I know it says we should not use copyrighted music on the website, but if, for example, the song has already been chosen and is essential to the story, such as a music video, are we still allowed to use it or no? So yes, the ultimate answer to that is yes. Also, Young Arts has licensing with different companies. So don't worry too much about the music that you're submitting. Yes, if you can, public domain is the best bet. But we do hold licenses with certain companies that we can actually get approval for certain music. Don't let that hold you up too much.
And Nina, if you found a famous song and made your own music video to that song, you can submit it, but that will be taken in consideration as you're being evaluated to those who creatively were working with newer music or more original work. You doing a music video of a really well-known song probably is not in as much of alignment. That might hold you back a little bit in terms of your scoring. But default on submitting rather than not submitting, but we do want to see as original work across the board and your own innovation, because ultimately you did a music video of somebody else's music video that's already been out there with a famous song or copyrighted song, original, like the innovation for that song and your interpretation of somebody else's story might not line up as well or score in the same way that someone who worked with a band from school or created music with somebody that they collaborated with. We have had a lot of music videos in and out, but we want to see your work, and we'd rather see it than not see it. But if you have other options, I want to know what else you got.
So we'll be sending out this video link. Yes, it is being recorded. It will be up on our YouTube page within the next couple of weeks. So make sure that you check it out if you missed any part of this info session. The film contains a song from another country. Would that be all right to use? Again, as we've talked about, all of the things we've talked about regarding using music, it applies to the same if it's a song from another country. If I can upload a video to YouTube, that should mean the song is uncopyrighted, right? Technically, yes, but YouTube also allows you to upload things that are not allowed and then gives you a strike. So just be very careful. Not necessarily just because it allowed you to upload it into YouTube doesn't mean that the song is uncopyrighted. Are there restrictions on explicit language? No, Young Arts does not censor in any way, shape, or form. So no. How do you feel about animated films that were created with AI?
So
Kimberley,
yeah.
We talked about this.
What we are looking for here for Young Arts film discipline is your original story. And for us, if you are an animator and you are using AI as a tool, we are going to be looking and exploring a animation that's used with Ink and Paint or 3D Studio Max or like some apps. So it really depends on how we evaluate how you've used the AI. If I can't tell where your creativity ends and the AI starts, that might be more difficult for you to be as competitive as some of the animations that's so clearly created by this person. And so if you want to share information about how the AI was utilized, we want to hear about that as well. But keep that into consideration is we want to make sure that we are identifying great artists. And part of that, especially in the film discipline, is that the original ideas and craftsmanship is coming from the person, not the computer doing the work. But obviously, using these techniques and using all of these amazing tools that we have as filmmakers is all through our work and is being explored on a daily basis. But AI specifically in animation needs to be as a tool that furthered your own creative idea. So, Nidra, do you want to add any nuances to that?
That was perfect. We are coming up on time. We have 4 minutes, so I do want to just talk briefly about a couple administrative parts of this. So as we mentioned earlier, you must be between the ages of 15 to 18 or in grades 10 through 12 on December 1st of this year in order to apply. Once you apply, the application deadline is October 13th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern, and that's 8:59 p.m. Pacific. Once you submit and that deadline passes, the adjudication process starts immediately after that and takes approximately about a month to find our winners. Another thing to note is that we have the application on a platform called Kaleidoscope this year. So you can view the requirements and the process for applying on our website at youngarts.org. It will take you to a link to the application. That application is a 2-part application this year. And that means that you have the main application, which is your contact information, school, a couple other research questions that we have on there. And then you would be selecting your discipline and category on that page. And then it will automatically take you to, if you're applying in film, it would take you to your film application where you would upload your video or videos. So just remember the deadline, both parts of that application have to be completed by the deadline in order for your submission to be viewed by the judges. So yes, after that, winners are announced approximately the end of November. And then Young Arts Week takes place in January. And we will also be having a couple other programs throughout the spring next year. So make sure to look out for those as well. And also Young Arts is not just during your winning year. There are opportunities well into your career. We have a platform called Young Arts Post, and that is exclusive to Young Arts winners at all levels. And there you can collaborate with other winners from past years, current year. You can post opportunities for yourself if you have opportunities. There are microgrants, residencies, fellowships, all kinds of things available to Young Arts winners exclusively on that platform. So again, not just during your winning year, but every year after that. I did see a question earlier. I saw on the Young Arts website that smaller awards are given out to those that aren't selected as winners. Is this true? So the winners have 2 different levels. It's Young Arts winner with distinction, and that is a winner who is invited to participate in National Young Arts Week. And then we have Young Arts winner. So all levels are winners, and they receive different award amounts for those different levels. Yeah, so I think we got through all of the questions. If you think of anything after this session, or if things come to you in the meantime, please feel free to DM us on social media, visit our website. There are the requirements you can find on there, and there are also a whole list of FAQs that will probably answer most of your questions. And if you still have questions, please feel free to email us at apply@youngarts.org. Or give us a call. So thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Mariah. It was such a pleasure having everybody and great questions that came in. Thank you so much. And again, make sure to look for this video on YouTube in the next couple weeks.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Everybody. Can't wait to see all of your work. We're really excited.